Good morning, everyone. My name is Daniel Theis. I am working for the Institute for Internet Security in Gelsenkirchen, Germany. And today I will present you the paper Investigating GDPR Fines in the Light of Data Flows. So first off, let me give you a short intro. The GDPR is now over 4 years in effect, and while it surely impacted businesses and customer-related processes all around the world, we are still well away from having privacy by design or even complete data protection management systems everywhere. Often we focus just on the big players like Amazon, Facebook or Google. And while they play a critical role as they have tremendous amounts of users, there are still a lot of other institutions that need to comply to the GDPR. By now, we have over 1,200 imposed fines, and especially those violations to the GDPR might give us the knowledge we need to help institutions, not just those that have been fined, but any to improve their data protection management. So, we wanted to look at the fines, and that is what we did in 856 cases. As we have a look into privacy regulations, we know finding privacy-preserving solutions for companies, big infrastructures and multiple interwoven processes is not just a matter of finding and applying a technical solution like a software. Instead, it is an interdisciplinary task that has to include, yes, the technical aspects, but also a wide range of organizational challenges. This may include a redesign of an existing system. As we obviously know, there are at least 856 violations against the GDPR. We want to know, what challenges did these institutions face? What did they wrong? But first off, a quick note on related work. In this talk, I just want to mention that our paper relied on the enforcement tracker by CMS Law. What they did was accumulating the fines imposed by the data protection authorities, which resulted in a list of fines with a summary about what happened, the controller or processor, the general type of violation, and a list of related articles of the GDPR, as well as some metadata. So here is what we did. We developed a systemization scheme to categorize the GDPR fines of the enforcement tracker for extended analysis. The scheme covers a detailed categorization of the fined issue, why DPAs investigated it, and whether the issue was rooted in organizational or technical problems. Based on a data lifecycle model, we grouped the analyzed fines into different processing phases, and finally, we analyze which GDPR principles are commonly infringed in the analyzed cases. We do so by performing a word frequency analysis and map word stems to the definitions given in Article 4 of the GDPR. So let me give you a short overview over the data. In about 3 years, we have a total sum of fines of around 1.8 billion euro. And as you can see, Amazon has a huge share with about 40%. The mean lies around 2.1 million euro, and the lowest fine is in fact 0 euro. Now that we have our data, we want a more detailed coding on what was fined, aka the violations. So we started an iterative coding process based on the violations found in the summary and the type of violation that was given by the enforcement tracker. Let me give you an example. For any case starting with an insufficient fulfillment of data subject rights, we refined the category to describe which data subject rights were violated, for example, the right to access or erasure. These refined categories give us more information about why an institution has been fined, rather than just a rough direction. Here you see the distribution of violations by their top-level categories. We have the most common violation with over 750 cases with the unauthorized access, followed by insufficient security measures with just half as much. We even have almost 100 cases where institutions failed to report a data breach or to cooperate with a DPA, and more than 150 cases that failed to accommodate the information obligations set by the GDPR. As you already know, we just analyzed 856 cases, yet we have more than double the violations. So it's safe to say, one violation comes rarely alone. Moreover, 58% have an underlying technical problem. and about 79% can be related to issues in organization. So obviously, we have an overlap of technical and organizational issues. But how are these problems reflected in fines? Although we have over 300 fines more related to organizational fines, the amount of fines is about 25% lower than for fines of technical origin. We all wish our private data was not leaked. We want to say, keep your secrets. But we already know that did not work. So let's have a look at the causes for investigations. There are basically 4 groups that may trigger an investigation. 1. The data controller. 2. A third party that is involved in handling of personal data. 3. A data subject. And 4. Any DPA, but most likely a local DPA. Unfortunately, we can reliably assign only 29% of the violations to one of the previously mentioned groups. Data publication seems to be the reason number 1 for investigations, with a share of 45%. Moreover, just 12% of the investigations can be tracked back to a report by the data controller. This low number may be an indicator to a problem with the reporting requirements. As you remember, unauthorized access and insufficient security measures were the most violated top-level categories. Here we have the most fined categories. Although they may not be the only reason for a fine, 48% of all fines included a processing of personal data without legal basis. Moreover, 26% of all cases included an unauthorized disclosure, which ranged from a disclosure to the wrong person up to publicly distributing data on websites. And last, but definitely not least, 21% of the fines included a failure to fulfill data subject rights, like granting access to the processed personal data. So let's head on to the data lifecycle. According to the abstract personal data lifecycle model, we have a total of 8 phases personal data can go through. These phases are initiation, collection, retention, access, disclosure, usage, review, and destruction. We applied our codes respectively, the categories, to these phases. Let me give you an example. The initiation phase describes the development of a processing plan, which includes the definition of the purpose and how personal data is collected and processed. This is the phase where privacy by design and default are applied, which is why we attributed the categories privacy unfriendly design and the privacy policy to this phase. According to our attribution, the collection phase holds the largest number of fines. Moreover, this phase is the only where we found more fines being rooted in organizational issues than technical. In the retention, access and usage phase, we identified a higher number of technical issues compared to organizational violations. But let's get into further detail with word frequency analysis. We already know we have more technical issues than organizational when it comes to accessing personal data. Thus, following our word frequency analysis of all fine summaries showed access to be clearly the most frequent word, as it appeared 67% more often than the second most frequent word, use. Just a side note on the process of the analysis. We use word stamps like shown here in order to ensure we catch the meaning and don't build up piles of words with the same meaning. So let's have a more in-depth look at access. The 2 main issues that correlate to access are in fact that too much data was disclosed. The problems here are that personal data is accessible without any authentication procedure in place, as well as flawed access management. Moreover, there are cases of unnecessary access through third parties. On the other hand, not enough data was disclosed. To be more precise, access relates to the failure to comply with access requests by data subjects to their personal data, as well as an insufficiently accessible privacy policy or information regarding the processing of personal data. Our last step of analysis was to map the word stems we extracted to the definitions in Article 4 of the GDPR. And I would like to share some of the interesting findings with you here. For restriction, we have found adequate, appropriate, and sufficient, respectively the word stems, which indicate the defined institutions tried to fulfill the requirements but were not able to. For controller, we have found enough occasions of Vodafone to be listed individually as opposed to more general terms like bank or hospital. Speaking of hospital, we found at least 18% of personal data to be attributed to the well-being of an individual, which exceeds the most frequent word stem name by 2%. To end this presentation, I would like to give you our conclusions. The DPAs issue most fines for reason of an organizational origin. We revealed area of cooperative research, security and legal, as 409 fines are related to processing data without a legal basis. Moreover, there is a need for rigorous data protection management and privacy by design. We also showed that a high number of fines is attributed to the early phases of data processing, which indicates widespread data processing issues. Finally, many violations are related to issues in access control management. There is a need for refined organizational processes and continuous monitoring to avoid unwanted data disclosures. If you have questions, feel free to ask them here or after the session. Stay safe and thank you very much.